Righty-ho. If I've ever used the word hate, it's just a shortcut word and a mistake word for decry. Why I decry? Let's just have a... God, a fucking dog's gonna come and look. Right. Oh. What a good idea to spend a night here. This is without a doubt Castellan's best action town. Right. I decry the Green Party, any leftist commentator, and I decry the BBC. Now, there are many reasons to decry the BBC, but the BBC are important because the BBC line on things filters through into all your kind of mainstream thinking and writing and media and literature and publishing. Right, reasons to decry the Greens and leftists. You know, there are many reasons, but this is a perfect example. People in the bottom third, to get the orange label. Now, at this particular local co-op, they're available between about 4 and 6 p.m. The orange label, down from £2 to 94p. You need to be in a couple to regularly have time to swing by your local supermarket to get your orange label. No green, no so up themselves green, who always blame somebody else, or bottom third, or leftist bottom third. We'll ever speak of that. Now, the world needs to watch out, even though I'm going to disappear now. For good. I am so absurdly organised. It does not look organised, but there's a couple of extra boxes in there. That is for today. I need to do a few things to catch up. I have to clear my phone of bits of video. Right. But why I decry the BBC? Spending time down here, but it was the same in my last area. I have zero interest in here. But I lived in a hamlet. Now, I have to do this very quickly because there's only 2 gigabytes left. I lived in a lovely little hamlet with a kind of 3-generation family over 2 places. Yet one man there, aged about 40, was so lost to the chemicals. The chemical. And then there were lots of other people around. Now, I'm going to name a name, but this is much more... I mean, this actually needs a kind of 10-page essay, which it's all in there. It's not, it's, you know, I only care about telling the truth of our society to my daughter's generation. A man who, for a long time, I kind of had a kind of, at a distance, respectful. I respected this man relationship with. Not a senior person in the BBC, but a kind of, well, I'll have to fill this out when I've got more gigabytes. But he wrote the scholarly great roundup of the counterculture. Now, I personally was lucky, if you look at ralphschism.com this morning, to see just the end of the really healthy counterculture. But anyway, so this guy, who's a Londoner, basically had been fucked out of his head on chemicals. Now, my generation, no, he's the same, he's actually older than me. We knew you just stop at chemicals, full stop. Oh, yes, people just accidentally or got weak and ended up in chemicals a little bit. I mean, myself, I've had nothing to do with any of this stuff, no, at all, since about the age of 24. Right, but chemicals fuck your head up. There are so many. I'm going to rendezvous later on today with a great woman I like, and we've been sort of acquaintances at a distance. Even she, I wouldn't dream of identifying her, though she's open about it. She was lost to cocaine, which is so poisonous around here. She's a middle-class mother, carer, mother of 3, good, quite conformist deep down. She was lost. Anyway, so Ian Marchant writes the great counterculture scholarly book. Within that book, he basically plays with, yeah, but it's kind of sexy and good if there's chemicals around. There were two festivals in the whole region, I only ever think of regions, two small festivals in the region I used to live. One in the middle of nowhere called the Workhouse Festival, the other one called Sheep Music. Now, sheep music was wonderful. I only went to festivals, small festivals, to take my daughter there to experience workshops, etc. You go to Workhouse, it was absolutely full of people fucked out of their head on dangerous chemicals. It's in the middle of nowhere. Right, that's not really the thing, but this man represents various things over years, but there's something much more interesting. I actually have a recording of something, and I'm going to put it up. And it's not any axe to grind. It's like, this is the real truth of what happened. But just staying with point one, to write that when I encountered this book, and I think did he give me an advance copy? No. But I would see him around. And at the same time, he was spinning other crap on Radio 4. I have actual categorical proof. He was speaking about lovely communities around. He did a programme about the lovely communities and artisan workers of the marches. And quite randomly, within a few weeks, I heard pretty much every person on his programme speak really viciously and nastily about other people on his programme. It's all a theme park. I knew that years ago. I am not interested in anything in this awful country from about 15 years ago. I'm not interested at all. It's all just a complete fraud, a complete fake. But the danger is, the only interesting, or rather it's a cause, tell the truth to this generation of like 35 to 45-year-old people. And Marchant's book is a beautiful representation. You know, that guy himself didn't have the guts, great big fat waddling around person. But nobody can get me on him, because he absolutely did a disgraceful thing in public that I have a record of. But yeah, that book is basically kind of pro really hard chemical drugs. It doesn't speak of, well, there were plenty who got so damaged by it all, their whole lives have been ruined, and the lives of those around them. And that, yes. Now, I've nearly forgotten something. Why is this relevant today? I mean, I've come across something, I don't know if, I believe it is true actually, stating, because I know it's the case around here, around this whole region, this whole county, stating that Zelensky and co are sitting in their bunker snorting away at cocaine. Now, I can hear this in Zelensky. I can hear it. That, of course, is a great big conclusion to jump to. But any person, group, person who wields power, Zelensky essentially is able, it dictates the life and death of many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. I'm going to assume that's true. It's something to do with me. I've no interest. It's all pathetic. But to hear that none of the BBC journalists covering anything from the last 10 years ever suggests that these things are important. Are some of these kind of aggressive Rambo-esque figures, these popularizers, these whatever, there are all sorts of clever sounding phrases, the authoritarian, the authoritariocrat, whatever, are a fair few of them actually fucked out of their head on strong stimulant drugs, which can also include steroids, that we hear that maybe a quarter of our police may have been involved with using. I can't remember exactly the exact sentence where, but the BBC did something which pointed this out. Any of these people who have got their fingers on the trigger or are doing the power play behind the scenes, who may well be warped by extremely strong stimulants, BBC are so effete, they never mention that this actually may be a factor. I mean, this is insanity. This is total Orwellian avoidance of a huge area. And that is because all our modern journalists, it's far harder to talk about that than just always detach it to some bigger political issue. And the reason is because they know, I mean, most journalists by definition are pretty wimpish people. Their mates when they were teenagers and in their early 20s were those who bravely were guzzling the harder drugs. So your journalist, and I did know a one BBC journalist reasonably well. He was pathetic for another reason. John Sweeney in 2006 was covering the Great Big Family Law Conference, but he knew there were problems innately. He would speak to me on the phone, and at the very last minute, he was going there. He was a guest speaker. It was a conference basically on Orwellian tyranny within the justice system. Simon, at the very last minute, my bosses have just pulled my permission to go and cover it. John, fucking fight for it. He was quite shocked. Fucking fight for it, but he didn't. Okay, so even though there was a good journalist who would be broader and be more honest about what are the real problems, the real issues deep down in our society, too pathetic. That's when you've got to be a journalist. Simon, my bosses have said I can no longer cover the Care and Health Conference in October, November 2006 in the hotel, the Millennium Hotel, where they were all gathered, including Harriet Harman. My bosses have said I can no longer go there and speak there. John, do your fucking job and blackmail your bosses. You will do your job. You wanted to go to that. You thought that was important. That's when journalism died in Britain. But then this new, they do not cover the fact that people may have other reasons that they've become nutcases because their mates, who they still want to go to the same parties as, were guzzling the hard drugs. Right. Is that recorded? Yeah, God, that's amazing. I've got all that in. Right, now I have some nice last few things. 3 months of a few notes, just a few things to finish off, and then I'm disappearing from any person involvement. But I'm going to do my various writings and recordings over the years. I'm going to curate them into something more coherent. And all that matters is regular use of a electrical socket. Don't know about that. Even the librarian evades this issue. So many screwed up by these massive compulsions in this region, which was the case in my previous region. I saw it happen. I care about it. Don't tell lies. It's not even gentrification. It's just as much this change. Who are the British? I'm sorry, where these really strong chemicals came along and warped a lot of people. Well, it's not actually a free country in that respect, of course. I believe with the Portuguese approach of well, it's so hard, but decriminalising and helping people. Now, nobody should be chucked in jail, but excuse me, that is one reason, a very important reason, even though alcohol's just as bad, why so many people have become warped. And right, it ends up with, yes, yesterday I was having a riff with somebody in the local supermarket here. We had a nice, funny conversation. But she parted as a 55-year-old woman. I'd mentioned to them, well, the fella he was quite amused. You're the head of Co-op banking 6-7 years ago basically had to resign due to a massive cocaine guzzling. And they all thought it was funny, But then the woman I was chatting with this about left with, yes, but it was ethical cocaine. And I said to her, God, that is St. Just for you. Yeah. Nothing you can do about it except be honest about it.